Okay, so what if our planet could go for a checkup? What would the doctor's report even say? Well, in a way, that's exactly what happened a few years ago. Hundreds of the world's top scientists got together to create the most detailed assessment of climate science ever. We're talking about the IPCC's Sixth Assessment Report. You can basically think of it as the ultimate health report for Earth. And today, we're going to break down what it found.
Yeah, and this report, it does not pull any punches. I mean, right from the very beginning, the UN Secretary General lays it out. This isn't a conversation about maybes or what-ifs anymore. The science is settled. It's solid. As he put it, the evidence is simply irrefutable.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover in this breakdown. First, we'll look at the core diagnosis. What the science says is unequivocal. Then we'll talk about the planet's fever and put it in context. After that, we'll get into the symptoms we're feeling right now, look at our possible climate futures, understand why every single fraction of a degree is so important, and finally, wrap up with what the report calls the science of choice.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the diagnosis. And really, this is it. This is the big one. The single most important takeaway from, thousands and thousands of studies. The absolute core finding of modern climate science.
Scientists are usually super careful with their words, right? They use cautious language. So when they drop a word like unequivocal, you have to pay attention. It's like a giant flashing red light. It means there's no doubt, no ambiguity. The debate is over. The report states it plainly. Human influence is what has warmed our atmosphere, our oceans, and our land.
So, okay, how much warming are we actually talking about here? Well, if we look at the decade between 2010 and 2019, the planet had already warmed up by an average of 1.06 degrees Celsius, and that's compared to the time before the Industrial Revolution. This isn't a model or a projection, this is the measured reality.
All right, so the big question is, what caused it? The report breaks it down, and the science is crystal clear. Their best estimate for the warming caused specifically by human influence is 1.07 degrees Celsius. Just look at those two bars side by side. It's an almost perfect match. That right there, that's the fingerprint. That's the proof.
Okay, so the planet has a fever of about 1 degree. And you might be thinking, 1 degree? Is that really such a big deal? Well, to really get why it's so significant, we have to zoom out, way out, and put this fever into its proper historical context.
Take a look at this. This is 2,000 years of Earth's temperature history. For century after century, you see the line just kind of bobbing along with minor natural ups and downs. And then, bam! Right at the very end, the temperature just skyrockets. This isn't just another warm spell, it's a vertical spike that is completely off the charts compared to anything in the last 2,000 years.
And really, the key thing here is the speed. I mean, has the Earth been warmer than this before? Yeah, way back, like 100,000 years ago. But those changes were driven by these slow, gradual wobbles in Earth's orbit that unfolded over thousands of years. What's happening now is happening faster than any warm-up we've seen in at least the last 2,000 years. Our planet's climate system just hasn't had a jolt this fast in a very, very long time.
All right, so we've established that this 1-degree fever is a huge deal historically. But what does a global average temperature actually mean for you and me on the ground? Let's move on and talk about the actual symptoms, how this warming is showing up across the globe right now.
So, these are the symptoms. The report says it's virtually certain, that's as close to 100% as scientists get, that heat waves are more frequent and more intense. Then there's high confidence. Think like an 8 or 9 out of 10 chance that heavy rainfall is also more frequent and intense. And in some parts of the world, agricultural droughts are getting worse. These aren't guesses. These confidence levels are based on an absolute mountain of data.
And let's be super clear, this isn't some far-off problem for other people. The report is incredibly direct about this. These changes are already affecting weather in every single inhabited region on the globe. We're talking about heat waves, floods, droughts. No corner of the populated world is being spared.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis and the symptoms we're feeling now. So what's the prognosis? Where are we headed? Well, the thing is, the report doesn't give us just one single future. And that's because the future isn't set in stone. It really, truly depends on the choices we all make, starting right now.
So what the scientists did was model 5 different possible futures for us. These pathways range from a very low emissions future, that's where we cut greenhouse gases like crazy and get to net zero, all the way to a very high emissions future, where we basically double down on fossil fuels. And you can see the results right there. The best we can hope for now is a world that's about 1.4 degrees warmer. The worst?
a staggering 4.4 degrees of warming.
And what does that actually look like on a map? Well, check this out. On the left, you've got a world with about 1.5 degrees of warming. Yeah, it's warmer everywhere, you can see that. But now look at the world on the right, a world with 4 degrees of warming. Those deep, dark reds, that's extreme, intense heat, especially over land and up in the Arctic. We're not just talking about a warmer world, we're talking about two completely different planets.
And this brings us to one of the most important ideas in the entire report. You might hear people talking about 1.5 degrees versus 2 degrees of warming, and it might not sound like a huge difference, right? Just half a degree. But in terms of the climate system, it's a world of difference. Every fraction matters.
Here's why. The report shows that for every single extra half degree of warming, we see what they call clearly discernible increases in how bad and how often we get heat waves and heavy rain. The key is that the impacts don't just add up nicely. They ramp up. They get exponentially worse. A risk that might seem manageable at 1.5 degrees can become a full-blown catastrophe at 2 degrees.
Want a perfect example? It's pretty simple physics. A warmer atmosphere holds more water vapor. The report projects that for every single degree of global warming, the heaviest downpours will get about 7% more intense. So what does that mean? It means more water falling out of the sky way faster, leading to much more dangerous flash floods.
And here's a really sobering reality check from the report. Some big changes are now baked in. They're unavoidable. It concludes that even in our best case, most optimistic scenarios, the Arctic is likely going to be practically free of sea ice in the summer at least once before 2050. That's a huge deal. It tells us some parts of the climate system have already been pushed past a tipping point, which honestly just makes it that much more urgent to act on the things we still can change.
Which brings us, finally, to maybe the most important takeaway from this entire planetary checkup. And that's the science of choice. Because the key message here is that the future is not written. It's not predetermined. It really is in our hands.
This quote from the people who led the report really just says it all. The point of all this science isn't to tell us exactly what to do. The point is to show us with incredible clarity the consequences of our decisions, both our actions and our inactions. The physics of the climate are what they are. The path we choose to walk, well, that's on us.
So, there you have it. The planet's health report is in. The diagnosis is unequivocal. The symptoms are showing up all over the world. And the prognosis? Well, that depends entirely on the treatment plan that we decide to follow. The science has given us the facts. It's done its job. So the real question, the one this report leaves hanging in the air for all of us, is this: what will our response be?